Hi, Jonathan with JonathanStewartPhotos.com. Today I have the new Sony Zeiss 50mm 1.4. This lens has been out for about a week now. They announced it several months ago to a lot of fanfare, but the big problem that everybody has in all the online forums is that it's a $1,500 lens, US. Now compare that to the old Sony 50 1.4, the one that they're not discontinuing, which costs less than $500 US, and you really have to ask yourself, does this lens live up to the Zeiss tag, and does it deliver quality that would justify a $1,000 premium? Let's find out. But first, looking at the lenses together, you'll notice that the standard Sony 50 1.4, I mean, compared to the Zeiss, it almost looks like a little toy. And as far as I know, the old 50 is about the smallest lens that Sony makes, certainly for full frame. The Zeiss 50, it's roughly the same size as the Zeiss 85 1.4 that I'm using to film this video, but it is significantly lighter. One advantage this does have, though, over the other Zeiss Prime is that it's the SSM motor, so it's totally internally focusing, and it's all electronic motors inside the lens, and the front element does not extend like it does on the 85. The big thing on this lens, though, at least for me, is that Sony has finally stepped up to the plate and made a top-tier lens that's weatherproof. So now I have a lens that I can stick on my camera, throw it in my backpack, take it out to the mountains or the desert or the jungle, and really get out there in the elements and use this kind of lens where I like to use it without worrying too much about destroying it if I get a couple of drops of rain on it. Huge bonus for me. Now, my big concern, of course, is how does the lens perform optically? Does it surpass this lens? Does it justify the price tag? Well, let's put it through the test and find out. Click the link below to check out my website, my Facebook page, and also there's an album linked below with high-def photos from these two lenses.
Taking a look at some of the pictures, this is the Los Angeles City Hall 30-second exposure taken at night, obviously, and really like the colors here. Another thing that I like, if we click in, we can see these cool sun stars we get around the light sources, and a little bit of flaring, which certainly in my mind doesn't detract from the image but adds to it. Moving through quickly, another great shot of the contrast. Here's an idea of the background blur we can get. See how it turns the points of light into these nice blobs? So I did some 100% crops of these hummingbirds to give you an idea of the sharpness of the lens. Now when you nail the focus, things look great. And also I should mention that the lens came with a very slight back focus, and I did a micro adjustment with my A99 body, and I think it was -4, and I got it so it's dead on now. If you haven't done that yet, I highly recommend that you go through and calibrate all your lenses. You can buy kits online, or you can actually make your own, which I did for, like nothing. Save yourself 70 bucks, and you definitely get better results after you've calibrated your lenses. So here's the non-crop version. We'll just zoom in, and we're cropping in. So yeah, really nice sharpness, huh? From a 50mm. This is taken about probably 25-30 feet away. Okay, nice other example of the background blur, turning these points of light into blobs. Didn't quite nail the focus on her face, but just including this as an example of the bokeh. So check out the sharpness as we do 100% crop. Really nice detail on her base, on this pick guard and everything. Really great detail. Same thing on this guitar. Check it out. We'll crop in, and it's just picking up just really fine detail here on his bridge and his pick guard. This is a nice lens. So I included this picture of the Les Paul because it's an example of why you don't want to use your widest aperture necessarily when you're in full sunlight conditions. When you get reflections off of bright surfaces, you do get some chromatic aberration. And this isn't unique to this lens. This is pretty much all fast lenses will do this. It's impossible to stop. I would consider this a minor problem, though, on this lens compared to others. But notice the purple fringing we're getting here along his bridge and over here, this bridge, and along the pickup. So yeah, I mean, it exists. It's not too bad. And look at the bokeh though. Look at how it's turning these background blobs to just, anyway, here we go. Let's see. Okay, so check out this Mustang. Same deal, right? We're getting a little bit of chromatic aberration along the headlight and the bumper. We zoom in. Here's, you can see it. Not too distracting. You can eliminate this in Lightroom fairly easily, but it exists. We stop down to F11. What a beautiful car though, isn't it? Stop down to F11, look at the bumper, same thing, right? We stop down, those chromatic aberrations disappear. We're narrowing the path that the light takes through the aperture of the lens, and so that's reducing the different refraction rates to a more manageable level for the lens. And thanks to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, we're also getting these nice sun stars. So thank you for that, if you know your quantum physics. Great sharpness here. Have a hot dog. So this is the actual dog that was in The Big Lebowski, the Pomeranian that was jumping up and down on Walter Sobchak's leg in the bowling alley. He said he wasn't going to buy it a beer. But the woman had it stuffed and takes it around with her in a stroller every 4th of July to show everybody she's a local celebrity. And so yeah, that's the dog from The Big Lebowski. And if you believe that, I have some real estate to sell you in some Florida swampland. Now let's take a look comparing images from the from the standard Sony lens and the Zeiss lens. On the left, we have the Zeiss. This is both shot at 1.4. If we zoom in, we can see the difference in sharpness. Now, this is not a focus issue. Both lenses were properly focused. This is sharpness. And I don't think there's any question about it. The Zeiss is far superior at 1.4 wide open than the standard Sony. Look at the sharpness, the difference in detail that you get on the seeds with the Sony lens. Yeah, far superior. And we can look at the background blur. If we check out the one on the right, the standard Sony, we're getting a little bit more detail in these vertical members on the fence, but that's distracting detail. When you want it blurred and buttery smooth, you don't want that kind of distracting detail. So if we go over here to the left and look at the Zeiss, we see that it is just totally dissolved away into next to nothing. This little vertical line that's going through both is actually the top post of the fence. So let's go through the aperture range and see if the differences persist. So now we're at 2.8 on both lenses. Zoom in. Oops. It's more subtle here, but I'm still giving the edge in sharpness and contrast to the Zeiss on the left. And the background blur, it's the same story. Moving on down the line. We're looking at 4.5 now on both lenses. The Zeiss is looking better to me. Less distracting on the background blur. And we'll move to, what are we at, 5.6 on both? Zoom in. Just more detail, both color, contrast, sharpness, everything's looking better on the left in the Zeiss lens. Your background blur here, check it out. Down here, it's just dissolving into nothing. Here, it's definitely not bad, but it's just a little bit less buttery on the standard Sony. And let's keep going all the way up to f8. Both lenses f8. The song remains the same on the sharpness. Look at that. You have it's looking better on the Zeiss. Same thing here on the background blur. One more thing I want to point out is how there's a very, very slight difference in field of view between the two lenses. So here's the Zeiss 1.4, and there's the standard non-Zeiss. Notice how the field of view changes just slightly between the two lenses. The standard Sony lens is a little bit narrower field of view, and the Zeiss is a little bit wider. So here's the Zeiss, Sony. Let's move down the focal lengths. I'm sorry, the apertures. So here 2.8 with the Zeiss and the Sony. See that? It doesn't really seem to matter what aperture you use. Look at that. So functionally, you would think that there would be exactly the same, both 50mm lenses, but functionally it looks like there's a couple of millimeters of difference in your field of view, with the Zeiss being slightly wider.
Well, there you have it. We've seen the images taken through both of these lenses, and I think we can say rather decisively that the images taken through the Zeiss are far superior to those taken through the standard lens. They're more contrasty, the color's better, the background blur is better, they're sharper. That's not to say this isn't a pretty darn good lens, especially for the price. You can get one of these used for less than 400 bucks if you look. This lens is lightweight, it's small physically, so it definitely has its pluses as well. For me, the big thing with the Zeiss going forward, it's future-proofing my camera system. Right now it's a good match for the A99 sensor, but Sony's coming out with higher and higher resolution sensors as the years go on, and any deficiencies in your optics are going to be really obvious and magnified with the better sensors we have coming into the future. So I'm hoping this is going to be the lens that's going to continue to look good on the next generation of camera bodies for the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 years. But really one of the most important things to me is finally I have weatherproofing. So I can stick this thing on my camera, take it to the jungle like I'm getting ready to do in a few weeks, and not worry about getting a little bit of sweat on it or a little bit of rain or something like that. I'm going to be able to use this lens and abuse it and not destroy it. So great. So yes, for me it's worth it. Time will tell if it's a good investment. Let me know what you think though. Leave me a comment. Let me know if this lens is right for you. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, check out the links in the description below, and have a nice day.